Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Night. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff, today's topic is timely,
Very timely,
very
super
timely,
topical,
very topical.
and not like an
And
ointment.
I imagine there are some pretty sore spots that
Or
need,
orifices.
yeah, that some people right now need some ointment for, and we will get into that because we're talking about today something prompted by the news,
Hmm.
and that's the just following orders defense and what that implies and how it relates to the virtues. So, before we dive in, how are you fortifying yourself for this evening's discussion?
I am falling back on one of my favorites, although I have altered the recipe slightly, and I really desperately need to come up with a name for this drink. But it's I've switched from apple whiskey to an apple brandy,
Okay.
uh, and my sort of usual splash of Fireball, uh, smoked maple bitters, and Fever Tree ginger beer.
Wow. Smoky Johnny for
Like Johnny Appleseed.
Johnny Appleseed, and it's smoky.
Hmm.
Smoky and
Well,
smoke implies fire and fireball. So,
true. I think maybe I'll lean towards the fire aspect rather than the smoke aspect because the smoke is just in the bitters,
okay.
and
Okay.
then it's not a major component.
Okay.
But fire might have something. There might be something there.
Okay.
I'll consider that.
Okay.
What is your libation for the evening?
Well, as it's a cold and snowy evening, and I had to brave the roads, um,
Oh heavens.
well, people were mostly cautious and courteous, which was good. So I made myself a hot chocolate fortified with rum chata,
Oh,
which is
that's
cream and Jamaican rum, Caribbean rum of some sort.
yeah,
So, and it's a good
yeah.
combination. So here, I've actually made hot toddy and those, whiskey and
Yeah.
water and stuff, and that's good. And Irish coffee, and I like hot drinks in the wintertime. So, so, um, first of all, let's just recap the current situation.
Okay.
So, and I'm
We're
gonna,
going to be talking about the specific
well, just
situation of
because
this.
it prompts the discussion.
All right.
Uh, um, in September, the U.S. military carried out a strike on a Venezuelan boat in the Caribbean.
One of several such strikes.
Yeah, I think that was the first one. But there have been several, and maybe the incident under discussion may be referred to a later one, but um, the administration alleges that all aboard were smuggling drugs. They
Hmm.
referred to them as narco terrorists. Smuggling is
Which is
not
a
terrorism, and it's
interestingly
yeah.
innovative and invented term.
Well, the term has been around, but it generally referred to those using violence against civilians to support or facilitate their illegal drug activities, not simply smugglers. And this is different than the way these boats had been dealt with, which they'd been interdicted by the Coast Guard,
Right.
stopped, searched. If it was evidence was found, they were taken into custody and tried. And that's
Well, but in international waters, they'd have had to been returned to their country of origin for trial.
well, um, I think there's some variability depending on what their destination was. And
Okay,
I think that
but then you have to determine the destination.
right. So, not being an expert in maritime law or in the practices of the Coast Guard, the one thing I can say based on what I've read of the reporting is the usual practice previous to this administration was not followed of stopping and
Correct.
searching and validating. So it was simply targeted strikes. Um, in this particular one that's under discussion, most of the crew of the boat were killed in the initial strike, but two survived.
Hmm.
And they were holding on to the wreckage when they were killed in a subsequent strike. And what's under discussion and probably investigation by Congress will be whether the order to kill the survivors was where it was issued and what the chain of command was. Because that doing that is one of the given as one of the classic examples of a war crime.
Hmm.
Based on, let me see, a German U-boat commander in World War II, Heinz Wilhelm Eck, was
Hmm.
executed afterwards for ordering the killing of survivors from a sunk Greek merchant ship.
Right.
So that's absolutely considered a definition of war crime.
Well, and
Now,
there are other incidents, Japanese
yes,
um, pilots firing on downed
sailors,
pilots.
yeah.
Yes, sailors.
So there are lots of examples of that as crimes. There's also examples of, and we'll get to examples of what you might call righteously disobeying an order, and subsequently being proven correct, validated by that. But this is under discussion. Was it the Secretary of Defense who ordered it? Did he order the subsequent strike? He was watching it live on, by a drone camera, or was it the Admiral who he's saying, well, the Admiral ordered the second strike? And what about I'm sure the Admiral wasn't pulling the trigger himself on
No.
or hitting the launch button himself. He was ordering it. So the question here is, and it's been long since demonstrated, certainly with the Nuremberg trials at after World War II, that just following orders is not a defense against a war crime.
Right. Correct. Well, and particularly, I don't know what oaths or what laws were, in place in the German military during that time, but we very specifically have laws and oaths regarding what is a legal order and what is a
Yes,
legal action in wartime.
yes. And
So,
the enlisted personnel take an oath to obey the orders, to support, defend the Constitution, and obey legitimate orders according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice and Regulations, which specifically states, as reiterated in a recent video, that six senators who are veterans of the military or the intelligence
mhm.
establishment, they were reiterating that part of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, saying if it's not a legal order and you have to understand what the difference is, you have to disobey it. You have the right, you have the duty to disobey it. Um,
Well, I think that the message for me, the message wasn't just here's what, because they know what this is part of their oath and part of their training. They know what they
right,
have to do.
right.
And these pundits and military spokes, not official, unofficial military spokespeople coming forward and saying, we know what to do. How dare they come forward and try and tell us our jobs? Well, part of their message was not just here's what you need to do, but that we will support you. We will back
Yes,
your play.
yes.
You are not alone in the wilderness. You have people with authority and a voice that will make your case.
And
So that
and
was part of it.
That's an important part of it. And to get to an example, during the Vietnam War, it became known as, excuse me, as the My Lai massacre.
Hmm.
And a lieutenant um, shot a bunch of civilians and ordered someone else to, who refused, and eventually awarded, was commended and awarded for
Hmm.
refusing that because his refusal prevented further war crimes, and the lieutenant was convicted. And so it's an example, and I think they were saying, yeah, you'll have our support if you, I think you're absolutely right. You'll have our support if you righteously disobey an unlawful order.
Right.
So, for example, the sailor, whoever it was who was pushing the button, firing the launch, but whoever actually operated the controls for the second strike,
Hmm.
ordered by the admiral, would have been correct in refusing that order. The consequences of that would be challenging.
Yes.
So it's not to say that you just refuse enough, there'd be no consequence. There would be consequences, and they would be challenged. They would be challenging. And so the fact that these senators are offering their support is important.
Right, because it's really a rock and a hard place, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're right, you still have to suffer some short-term,
Yes.
consequences. You lose a commission. You might be put on some kind of military tribunal or something for disobeying an order. And then so you'd have to weather that and then go back and sue or reopen the case to prove that this was
Yeah.
correct, right? And if you don't refuse the order and you carry it out and it turns out later to be illegal, you're on the hook for that.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a really, really tough situation, and I would
Yeah.
not envy
Yeah.
a service person to be in that position.
Well, and that it's very relevant to the virtues, and we always come back to that because that's what we talk about. Because first of all, courage to
Hmm.
say no. I mean, the power to say no is one of the I've heard it said that that's the only real power an individual has is to say no. I don't completely agree with that, but certainly it's significant.
Hmm.
But it takes courage to say no. It takes courage sometimes to say yes, but it takes more in some situations, it takes more courage to refuse to do something than to agree to do it.
Right.
And so certainly comes back to courage. Um, I think franchise is, I've talked about it before, and our definitions differ slightly, but mine is that franchise is the privilege, the right, and therefore the duty to take positive action for the good is
Right.
franchise. And exercising the franchise, as people say, is voting. It's because you have the right to vote, you have the obligation, in my mind, to vote to exercise that franchise. Um, so franchise, I think, is a concept really is significant here because if it, you you have to have the courage to exercise that duty to take a positive action, which in some cases is saying no.
Correct. Yeah.
Stopping something can be a positive. Stopping a negative is a positive, right? Um, but exercising humility, do I know more? Do I understand? There are, this only talks about legal and illegal orders. It doesn't talk about stupid and not stupid orders.
Yeah.
And if you
Right.
ever saw the movie Gallipoli, which,
No.
yeah, really, Gallipoli was about a horribly mismanaged battle during
I'm
the
familiar with the
often
battle, just not the movie.
often horribly mismanaged war effort where um, the arrogance of the officers far back from the lines where it was um,
Yeah.
astonishing. Um, my personal example, and you were there for this, and this was more than 40 years ago. And this was in the Society for Creative Anachronism, our medieval reenactment organization, and we were at the Penzic War, which is the largest annual gathering, and we were fighting a battle using our rules. We're armored, and we use rattan swords and score hits that
Yeah,
are
right, right.
good, right? And I had been made a knight. I'd been knighted some months before in April, and this was in August.
Right.
And I was given a command of a not just my local group, but a larger group attached to it with specific orders. We were to go into the woods. We were to find our objective. We were not to engage. That was our orders. So we're marching into the woods, and I've got scouts out finding where the enemy are so we can avoid them. And oh, they're on this road. Let's take this other road. And we can see them, a small group of them, across this muddy ravine.
I remember this very clearly.
And we're passing them, and they're looking at us, a larger group, and they're not going to do anything. They can't do anything. They can't do anything. The enemy. And suddenly I hear a voice, stop the line, stop the line. And I'm thinking, who dares to stop? And the prince, the heir to the throne, comes up, and I say, yes, Your Highness. And he points across this muddy ravine and says, there they are, let's go get them, which is one of the goddamn stupidest orders in the history. There they are, let's go get them. And everybody's looking at me, and he steps off. Now, having
Yeah.
been newly made a knight, I didn't have the wherewithal I have now to either say, go get
That
him,
is,
Your Highness, but I have orders
hmm.
then you are
Those are,
not in the chain of command, or or to say, I need two volunteers, you, and to go with him and while we went on and carried on a mission. No, I stepped off with him, and
yep.
everybody stepped off with him.
Because I was behind you with everybody else, and we
Yeah,
all kind of looked at each other and shrugged and went over the side too. And we all struggled down into that shallow water of the ravine and climbed up the other side and died nearly to a man
yeah,
without achieving anything.
anything. Yes, and and it was a hot day, and most of us were just done after that.
Well, that later in that battle, uh, I did actually suffer heat exhaustion.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I did the next year. So, um, but that's one of those. Well, I, I, there was a stupid order,
Yeah,
but I followed it, knowing damn well what the consequences were. But the consequences for you know, in what we
right.
do, right? You lose, you get struck, you die, you overcome,
Yeah,
and
and
then
then
you
you
get
go
up,
resurrect and you go
you're
back.
ready, and you get right. It's not, it's much more, it's actually serious in real war. Um, and even so, knowing what I know now, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't, yeah, it had never occurred to me. Nobody had ever said this to me in the vigil, in the training, in anything before I became a knight. Somebody's gonna tell you to do something stupid, and it's gonna be the fucking prince. Nobody ever said that to me. Um,
Well,
And
or it's likely to be a royal or a royal peer of some kind that tells you
yeah,
to do the stupid
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Here's how you have to deal with it.
Yeah. And here are ways to deal with it. And I and this is, I'm clearly this is a lighter and much more frivolous take
Oh,
on
yeah.
the issue, but if I had said no, I would have had reasons to, and I would have had justification to, because I had orders from the king and the command staff, which was not a very well organized entity in those
Well,
days.
yeah.
Um, and he was a moron, and still is, as far as I know. Um, and that would have been, I would have been justified in finding some way to do something that was not exactly what he envisioned.
Well, now I think, given the current organization that the army, so to speak, has, I think you can look at somebody and say, "Sorry, that is outside the scope of my orders. Goodbye."
And actually, I've done that since then when I had orders and I had a unit and they had orders, and some, as you said, royal peer asshole was trying to come and poach people. I said, nope. Now, I have sufficient status in the organization,
Franchise.
franchise, yes, that I can say to somebody, no.
Yeah.
I have the power of no in that. Um, and
Well, and
the
that's why I
concept,
say, with the current level of organization in the army, pretty much everybody understands that they have that power
yes,
as
yeah.
well.
And yeah, they need to be reminded of that oftentimes. And I did. I mean, I have said to organized groups, I've said, we have orders. Somebody comes and tries to tell you something different. Don't do it. If it comes from me, because I'm now in command of this group, you listen to me,
Right.
and I will tell you, because things do change. Anybody else comes up, tell them, nope, talk to him,
Yep.
and that it's very little. I got your back, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's
we've
just,
both been in that
yeah.
situation.
And it's essentially the same as the video that the senators issued, with though much that's much more serious. And despite accusations that they're being called um,
Seditious.
disloyal, seditious,
I
yeah,
think the hypocrisy there is hilarious, as it often is when this administration tries to make a point.
yeah, hilarious in a very dark way.
Well, oh yeah, of course.
Given
But
given that he pardoned 1,600 actual seditionists.
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and it's some of the
1,600, 1,200, 1,600. I don't remember the exact number. Too damn many.
yeah. Well, it was just all. He didn't even
Hmm.
know the number. He just said,
Yep.
"Let's just do them all."
Yep.
So, but the right. So I think it's interesting that, like I said, some of these military pundits or former military, whatever, want to come forward and say, well, they're obviously, it's implied that they're telling service people to disobey orders. No, I don't think that's
No,
implied
no, not at
at all.
all. No.
I think the primary message was, if you must disobey an order for these reasons, we will back you.
Yeah, because it's an illegal order.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah,
They were
and that
very clear
will
about
have to
that,
come
what they
out in
said.
the whole
Yeah.
investigation or whatever.
Yep.
But if you didn't, how could you? It is patently absurd to say this is telling soldiers to disobey orders. It is reiterating what they have already sworn to do.
Yep.
And people saying, well, it just confuses people and makes them hesitate. And maybe under these circumstances and under this administration, maybe they should hesitate,
Yeah.
given the kinds of actions, deploying the military and the National Guard in civilian roles is questionable. And I mean that in all caps, questionable. Question that.
Yeah.
That should be questioned. Um,
Well, and there are court cases
yeah,
pending now about it
exactly.
and process now about whether that has been legal, whether it violates posse comitatus, which is the prohibition against using the military on U.S. soil. National Guard has been called out to do certain things in times of emergency. Does the emergency exist? It's bending
Right.
the rules to the point of breaking, bending the language to the and the as you said, the hypocrisy is so stunning from people who complained about the parsing of words. Um,
Well, and yeah,
that
and the larger hypocrisy is that all of this stuff is coming from um, mainly Republicans and the current administration. If anything even hinted like this from the Biden or Obama administrations, there would have been actual shootings. There would have been riots,
yeah,
real riots, riots, not just, you know, a bunch of immigration goons coming out of their office and throwing smoke bombs at people, actual riots.
yeah.
So it's it's just absurd to me that these arguments, they're trying to make these arguments and not seeing their own the folly. That what you're doing is you're enabling, because we're going to have another Democratic administration eventually. You are empowering that. Unless you're so convinced that this Project 2025 is going to make it impossible for there to be a change in the guard, boy, that's a tough bet to make, if you ask me.
It is, and but that's the plan. I mean, you look at the efforts at redistricting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, although redistricting in the middle of the
Of a census
census
cycle.
cycle, completely unusual. Not
Yep.
usual at all, but norms and traditions, fuck them, you know?
Which is weird
Um,
from conservatives, right? Because that's what they're supposed to be all about, is the norms and
yes,
the traditions.
we stand athwart history, saying no further.
Yeah.
As William F. Buckley, the uh, conservative pundit and publisher of well, he started a conservative magazine, and he was I forget the name of it, but he was often on. He was a public
Yeah.
conservative who would debate Gore Vidal frequently. I remember that. Um, and he said that was what is a conservative? We stand athwart history, saying no further.
Yep.
That no, this has gone far enough. We want to. It's well, conservative, conserving what was.
Right.
Yeah, well, obviously that doesn't apply to land, air, water, natural resources. Don't
Well,
conserve
yeah.
those, exploit those. It doesn't apply to
Well, there's
val
the difference between a conservative and a conservationist.
yeah, yeah. Um,
So, but this military thing,
yeah.
like I say, people calling for the trial of these six Congress people, that
Well, that's
they should be put on trial. Go ahead. Go
yeah.
ahead. There's absolutely nothing illegal about what they said.
Yeah, and um they were talking about recalling Senator Mark Kelly,
Right.
decorated officer, astronaut, recalling him to active duty so they could prosecute him under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which only applies for actions taken while active duty. They can't apply that They can't recall him and then apply that to something he did while he was
Right.
not serving.
Correct.
Um, Not that they wouldn't try.
Right. Yeah. Well,
They
there's another.
appointed, they appointed, illegally appointed two people to be federal prosecutors illegally. And so the cases they brought are null and void
Thrown out.
because they were brought by somebody who wasn't legally appointed to bring them.
Right. Well, it doesn't mean that they can't retry them with an actual legal representative. However,
Yeah,
they've
but
been thrown out without prejudice.
yes, but all the duly appointed federal prosecutors refused because there was
Yes.
no case.
Right.
So they
Right.
had to find hacks to do it who, uh,
Well, and there's a whole other aspect of this that isn't being talked about enough, I don't think, is that prior to these strikes and these crazy military actions and that the whole top layer of the judge's advocate general
yeah,
was wiped out,
yeah,
fired, let go.
the inspector generals too,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
inspectors general.
Well,
Yeah.
inspector general deal with Congress and the judge
Well,
advocate
and
generals deal with the military.
agencies and stuff. Yeah. But
Yeah.
judge advocate,
Yeah, both of those
replace them all with your loyal, valuing loyalty over honesty,
experience and
duty,
competence.
experience, competency, anything else.
Yep.
Loyalty is you hire enough people to kiss your ass, you're gonna get a chapped ass, just and nothing much else.
Well,
Um,
but that may become a significant factor, I think, that
yeah,
if they do try this, it's that's a factor that has to be observed that
yeah,
any experienced person would have been in this position, 5 years ago was summarily dismissed in
yeah.
favor of someone who swore who promised loyalty to the administration.
Well, and they have made people sign oaths of loyalty,
Oaths
which,
and NDAs.
yeah, just, oh man. Um,
How can a public servant sign an NDA to an individual
well,
or
and
a single
particularly
administration?
given that there is a Freedom of Information
Right,
Act that requires, well, there's a requirement to keep public records, to keep records and what have they been doing? They've been using apps that don't keep records, that
right.
disappear. So, and violating that, they've been using private non-governmental channels for communication. But her emails, it's
Yeah.
just so much more egregious than
Again, the
anything.
hypocrisy.
Yeah. And well, hypocrisy, calling someone on hypocrisy and having it mean anything means they have to feel a sense of shame over their actions. And you cannot shame the shameless. They don't
I
feel that.
I don't
You
I don't agree that
you can
there's an
shame them, but
emotional.
they aren't going to
No, but
respond to it.
I don't agree that there's an emotional component to calling someone a hypocrite. If you do something that you say, if you say one thing that this is what should be done, and then you do exactly the opposite, you're a hypocrite. I don't care how you feel about it.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't change. Usually, it has been their sense of shame, their obligation to adhere to societal norms, their reluctance to be shunned or called out on that behavior. That's usually been the control on that kind of behavior. People who don't feel that, yeah, they're still hypocrites, and we still have an
Okay.
obligation to call them hypocrites and point it out, and they don't care. They
No, well,
simply
in
don't
fact,
care.
they're being rewarded by a
Yeah,
whole segment of the administration.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly will be interesting to see where this goes. The inciting incident of this, um, because it was so egregious, the action of the second strike that killed the survivors was such an egregious and obvious violation of the laws of
Well,
military engagement.
yeah,
Um,
and the excuse that, oh, well, the target hadn't been completely destroyed, and it wasn't to, and this is what I think is going to have to come out. It's alleged that our secretary, so-called Secretary of War, actually said, kill them all. And that is not about destroying the target.
right.
That is about murdering the
Yeah.
survivors.
Yeah. And they're relying on, well, he only ordered that before the initial strike. He didn't order that as the follow-up. The admiral did that on his own because he was relying on that. And so here, bus, meet admiral, right?
Yeah.
Meet anyone who, well, that's something there was a lawyer who was Trump's longtime fixer,
Hmm.
Michael Cohen, and he threw him under the bus, and he's since issued warnings and said, don't work for this man. You're just gonna he's you're I don't know why he doesn't pay people.
Right.
He screws them out of stuff. He steals from them. He um gets them to take the blame for anything he does wrong.
He'll praise you publicly as long as you're doing what he wants. Failing that, you will be used and discarded.
Yeah, and the one example, like the I don't know, she soon to be resigned, um, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been a um, Trump supporter and QAnon and conspiracies and everything until she was absolutely on the bandwagon for him, show, showing up at events and campaigning for him.
Greatest
Um,
president in history.
and a lot of it was his promise. We're gonna, the Epstein files, we're gonna release those. And then they were slow walking it, and she was like, "Come on, you said you would," because she was also part of the whole, I think, part of the whole Pizzagate. If you remember that, there was a
Yeah, I don't.
accusation of a pizza parlor in D.C. that was a front for the Democrats who were pedophiles. So it's like more Q and on bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Um, and and she was saying, "Come on, let's do it." And Trump started attacking her until she finally said, and this was her justification for resigning, was that I could run again and win my seat back against whoever he's going to have tried to primary me. I could do it, but then I'll be I'll be
Yeah,
in the minority because we're going to lose because of what they're doing, and I don't want to do that. It's like
yeah. So it's not about fighting for your constituents. It's
constituents, it's about being on the winning side and only being on the winning side and only caring about that. And
Mhm.
it was, and she also it was like when I read this, 5 weeks since Trump had been attacking her, she'd been getting thousands of death threats in the years that she was supporting Trump and attacking
Mhm.
Democrats and liberals and progressives. Zero death threats. But
Right.
5 years versus 5 weeks, 5 weeks against opposing, and that says something right there
Yep.
as well. But yeah, hey, I still got my space laser.
Oh, good, good. That's that's why now she's claiming she never said anything. I never said anything like that.
She, yes, I saw her on Bill Maher, who's didn't call her on this, He said, "Oh, you never said Jewish space lasers." She said, "No, I never did."
She
She
never used
said,
that phrase.
"No," she said, "Space lasers cause California fires, and they're funded by this person and the Rothschilds."
Yeah.
The Rothschilds, prominent Jewish banking family going back hundreds of years. So, of course, you put that together, it's the Rothschild, it's the Jewish space laser,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So
It's code.
it's code. It's not a dog whistle, it's a fucking foghorn,
The only
bitch.
fog is in her brain.
Yeah. And she's quitting, which says something else.
Yeah,
So,
announced her resignation 4 days after she became eligible for her pension,
which
which I
also,
find also to be,
yes. Yeah. And she'll be on Fox or one of the other,
yeah, or somebody will
or
hire her
she'll,
as a lobbyist.
yeah, something. Yeah. Yeah.
She won't,
So,
I don't think she'll have much traction as a lobbyist, frankly, but
no.
she wasn't trustworthy when she was in office. Why would anybody trust her out of office
Yeah.
when there's even
Um,
less accountability?
yeah. So, it seems that we might have veered off topic,
Well, it's
but
hard to tell because we do that so rarely.
true. But all of these things are connected. These are
They
all
are.
connected points. And um, it reminds me of the rhetorical technique referred to as a gish gallop,
Hmm.
where somebody just starts spouting so-called fact after fact after fact. And by the time you fact check the first one and find out it's bullshit, they're on to the 20th and the 30th, and they just keep galloping and spewing out these
Right.
lies or bullshit.
What's the ratio? It takes 5 times as long to refute something as it does to say it.
I think it's 10. It's
Okay.
Brandolini's bullshit asymmetry.
Okay.
Because Brandolini
Right.
defined the bullshit asymmetry, that it takes a, that much longer to refute bullshit than it does to spout it. Um, and it's all related. It's absolutely all related. All of this. By the time one thing and this is what one of their advisors called flooding the zone. They want
Right.
to flood the zone of media with all this stuff so that the other side doesn't know where it's a fog. They don't know where to, you know,
Oh, I think there's also, and I don't know that this has been, I haven't read it, but I can't read everything that's being published at the same time. But I don't
you have two
hear,
eyes. So,
yeah, I have not sufficiently reached a state of Zen where I can actually read two things at the same time with one eye each.
uh,
Show
well,
me how, you explain to me how that's done, and maybe I'll practice some more. But there's a thing that's not getting taught.
you have to see through your third eye,
Oh, yeah, okay.
breathe through your eyes. You remember that?
Activate your chakras.
Josh?
Okay, whatever. Whatever. But and I don't know if this is spelled out in Project 2025, but it is clear, and now to me it's clearly part of the strategy to take advantage of how slow the judiciary is
Yeah,
compared to what you can do with a friendly legislative body. You can make changes and enact things and withhold stuff, and it takes weeks
months.
for it
Yeah,
to even get before a federal judge. Or a federal judge will take it up, and then then another federal judge will put a hold on it until it can be reviewed and appealed.
yeah.
And I think that it is absolutely part of the strategy to take advantage of
Exploiting
that
the weakness.
grind.
Yeah, exploiting the weakness. Absolutely. Yep.
And this is going to be like that. You can accuse people for 2 weeks, and their trial comes up 5 months later, or
Yeah.
their absolved of anything 5 months later, but it doesn't matter. Nobody hears about that.
Yeah.
Nobody hears about the innocent find or the absolution or whatever. It's just the 2 weeks of constant accusation
Yeah.
and veiled evidence and flimsy uh, testimony,
Yeah.
right? And that's absolutely being used in a conscious manner.
And perhaps bringing it back around to the topic, the functionaries who are executing the leader's will say, I was just following orders.
Mm.
And that won't be a defense either.
One hopes not. One
Yeah.
hopes that yeah, that gleeful um, participation
Yeah.
is met with exactly the amount of judicial ire that should
Yeah.
follow it.
Yeah. Well, and we talked, we talked in an earlier episode about, um, what do we call it? The righteous
Hmm.
resignation for good reason. And I think that there's some examples of people who have done that. And then you said somebody, you believe that somebody should fire them. They should be made to, they should say no. They should stand their ground and refuse to do the bad thing and be fired. That's happening too,
Well, yeah,
you
and
know?
in a in your usual commercial position is what I'm talking about. You've got a job doing some
Yeah,
kind of work for an employer. Don't quit because you don't get the benefits if you quit.
right.
Make them fire you, and then if you then it's possible that if you are not fired, legally, if you were fired for trumped up reasons or,
Yeah,
you can fight it then. You don't want your old job back usually, but
yeah.
you can on occasion take them to court and get all the money you would have made.
It and that also takes time though. And
It absolutely does.
while you're doing that in a commercial situation, good luck having another employer hire you
Yep.
while you're in process of that.
Oh, it's absolutely rigged in
Yeah,
favor of the employer,
yeah, yeah.
and it's getting worse.
Well, and intentionally so because the rules protecting
Hmm.
employees are being done away with or
Being rolled
suspended
back.
or
Yep.
rolled back. Oh, God. I'm going to need something stiffer than a hot chocolate talking about this. Um,
Yeah, I
but
went a little heavy on the apple brandy for this particular drink just
yeah,
because I knew we were going to get into this.
yeah. I think I think we've looked at this and I think again, this touches on so many of the virtues. Fortitude, it takes strength, it takes courage, it takes fortitude to exercise your franchise and say no.
Hmm.
Um, and there can be a conflict between your duty and your loyalty and your honesty when when duty and loyalty and honesty um, are in conflict, that can be difficult
Right.
to
And we
solve.
assume we
Yeah.
assume when we talk to our audience that they actually have principles. So,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
would hope so. Yeah. Well,
so
and
we
that's, and I mean, think in a larger sense, one of the whole purpose of this endeavor that we've been doing now for several years has been to, in some ways, to educate, but in a lot of ways to let people know, hey, you are not alone if you think about living a virtuous life
Yeah.
and doing the right thing and being a good person by some definition. And how do
And
we
it,
define that? And this is one way to do it. And what does that mean? And you're not alone. There are a lot of people who, I think most people, I think humans, as we've said before, humans evolved to be social and developed ethics so that societies could survive. And
yeah,
that's really what we're talking about here and letting people know that, yeah, there are more of us than there are of them.
right. It's just that we put up guardrails around ourselves,
Yeah.
and and it makes it harder. It means we have to work together. We have to
Yeah.
stand there. We all have to stand along that guardrail,
Yeah.
right? Because others will ignore them.
Yeah.
And um, I I want to put in without without meaning any offense to anybody that you living living by the virtues, living a virtuous life, looking at your life and recognizing your conscience has a play in your psyche, that this also does not require you going to a specific building once a week and listening to somebody tell you how you are supposed to act according to some arbitrary book.
Yeah.
It can you can figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. And then it takes more thought, more work to do that for yourself than it does to simply say, just tell me how to be, tell me what to think, tell me how to behave, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And I will by default be a good person.
Right.
Well, I've known plenty of people who were rule followers in what they
They're
were
all those
told to
things.
do, and they were not what I would consider good people. They were judgmental, they were hypocritical, I've known a whole bunch of people like that who were
Hmm.
holier than thou and but not better than
Yeah.
others. Um, and it takes more work to figure it out.
Well,
But there's,
it takes self-examination,
yes,
not just, following a programmed recipe for getting into a pleasant afterlife.
yeah, and yeah, it's I, yeah, yeah, yep.
Okay, so,
So yeah, there we are.
but I don't, I'm getting a little off topic here again, but I don't object to religions for what they can do. I find it difficult to follow one myself because of what I've seen it do.
Well, I think in some ways there are as many religions as there are people, because I
Okay,
don't think any two people believe exactly the same thing. And because all humans are unique, individual. Um, on the surface, people may espouse, and I've similar things, and I've heard people say, well, I'll pick this denomination or this particular iteration of it in this particular location because it's the closest to what I think and I can accept the rest. I think a lot of it is community.
sure.
And I think some of that can be very, very helpful and very useful, and has been. I think some of it can be pretty detrimental too. Um, but I think the larger, the larger community of humanity would be something hoped for, but we won't see that until Star Trek is a reality. So,
Right. Yeah, we could talk about that sometime too.
yeah.
But
Well, we
yeah,
could talk about the difference between the Star Trek hopeful vision of the future and the the every
This,
other
yeah,
version
every other
just
dystopian
be up in
future. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, but there's an we should talk about this off camera, but because we're so far off the track of our subject now. But because I just listened to a guy like a 20-minute essay on Trekonomics, as he
Oh,
called it,
yeah.
and what it means, but we can bore our listeners with that some other time.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, economic theories and how they conflict in which, like so many of them are fiction
Yeah,
that don't live in the real world. So they're no more fictional than Star Trek. And people use, I think a more relevant thing might be people using descriptions as epithets or demonizing terminology for things,
mm.
um, or mislabeling things. Anyway, that's we can talk about that. So, um, okay. Well, I think we have not only digressed, regressed, progressed, circled around, and come through it again. I think we've covered the topic. So,
Yeah, yeah. As
um,
much as we ever do, it's more about our take, not
well, it is,
a
yeah,
scholarly examination.
yes, which we could do if, um, but this is not this is a place for looking at issues and examining them in light of the virtues.
Right.
And I
And we're
think
not,
we've,
like you say, we're not experts in the law or economics or any of
right.
that. So,
No, we are, I think, but I think we're both well read and thoughtful and knowledgeable, um, about a wide variety of topics. And that's really why you enjoy talking to me.
yeah, I knew there had to be something.
Yeah, exactly. Please like and share. Give us your comments, suggestions for topics, and until we see you next time, be thou
A good night.
and true.